Yeah, because I'm flat out this week. I've got a session tomorrow night.
Yeah. What are you doing?
Arvo, drum recording at home, and I've got to build the snare mic before then.
Oh, this is the cool
the KM84,
so the SDC or the
the SDC KM84, but it's hypercardioid.
Interesting.
Yeah,
hypercardioid.
It's a better rejection.
Sick, dude.
Better rejection.
And this is the one.
I think like a beta.
Yeah.
But better off-axis rejection.
Okay.
Like that kind of rejection.
Yeah.
The beta 57.
Yeah.
But not trash.
Yeah.
I've listened to demos. It sounds unreal.
Okay, cool. Because the rejection from a condenser is often nicer than a dynamic, but it's often wider. Like so it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So not hypercardioid.
Yeah. The way I always think about it is that they're all cardioid. But like a SM7B is like this, and then 57's like this, and then a condenser's like this.
Yeah.
You know, that's cool. All the differences.
So you're gonna build the mic before the session tomorrow. Cool.
It's not that hard.
No,
it's not that much.
It's like
mic circuits are easy for me.
So
now.
what's involved? It's the capsule onto the circuit board.
You don't even have to solder the capsule because they're screw on.
That's what you guys were talking about before. Is that what you were saying? Oh no, that's sorry. You were talking about JHS pedals. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the
circuit board, there's only a few components.
Oh, it's the bottom attached that little thing. What is that little thing? The pin that goes in from the back of the...
That is the metal connection, the gold-plated connection to the diaphragm. That's essentially like a backplate.
Cool.
It's like your backplate.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
All right,
well,
sweet.
it electrifies the backplate.
Fuck yeah,
in
dude.
the diaphragm.
That's
It's
sick.
weird. Like pencil condensers are different. We can talk about that one.
Yeah. I'm interested to hear that, how that goes, how your mic build goes. That's sick.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, shall we go?
Yeah.
All right, cool. What episode is this?
This is episode 5. Take
Tell him.
So we recorded. Can't even get my mic technique right. We recorded last week. We imported our session. We did a massive day of
3 hours.
Yeah, of podcasting, and then we made the amateur podcast mistake of forgetting to check audio.
Audio
on the way
podcast
in.
didn't capture the audio.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Yeah. How many audio engineers does it take to capture audio on a podcast?
Dude, and then that day sucked afterwards. Mitch, we finished the podcast shoot.
Yeah.
And me, Mitch, Hato were sitting here and we're all just like, shall we all just go home then?
Yeah. Yeah. The level of disappointment was palpable. I hated myself.
Yeah, I
hated
haven't
myself.
fucked up that bad in a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was bad.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why we have redundancies this week.
Yeah, plenty of
and
redundancies.
Yeah.
Heaps.
Yeah.
Yeah, back your shit up, everybody.
Yeah. Have audio redundancies in case you
yeah.
make mistakes like we did.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
My man.
Sponsors?
Yeah, sponsors. First thing, thank you very much, Tommirock, for letting us use your space every week. We love it. And
Hell
thank
yeah.
you to Musos Corner for being the best.
Yeah.
Both of you guys.
Yeah. Happy May the 4th to Musos.
Oh, yeah. Happy May the 4th, Musos. Legends.
Yeah.
That looked like chaos. Did you see the line?
Bro.
Yeah.
It's chaos every year.
Yeah, dude. I was saying to someone else the other day, it's like they were talking about, they didn't know about it. And I was telling them like what, and they couldn't wrap their head around it. They were like, a week. People camp for a week out the front of the store.
Do you want to quickly just...
I'll tell people what it is.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
just
okay.
briefly.
Right, yeah. So a little one for Musos. Musos do a May the 4th sale every year where there's a heap of items that are up to 90% off, right?
Yep.
So sometimes you'll get there'll be a Strat that's like a $4,000 Strat for $400.
Yeah.
It's absolutely outrageous. And people camp out the front for... I think the record is near 7 days, if not 7 days. I don't know. You have to ask them. But yeah, it's like some people are there and it's a scene. Hey, you drive past and there's people like playing instruments and like having jams and shit. It's actually kind of cool.
Yeah. Only in Newcastle.
Oh, dude, you know what else I was thinking is like, it's on Hunter Street, which is like arguably one of the most red hot places in Newcastle. And you got some 14-year-old kid like, can't wait to get my Squire. Like he's on the street. There's some meth head like at his tent. Like, I'm in, kid. It's just so fucking gnarly, man.
Dude.
Yeah. Anyway, good on anyone who had the fucking gall to do that because get a bargain, why not, eh?
Yeah, man.
Sick.
Hell yeah.
You want to talk about Pulsar Modular?
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, we touched on this last week that you were given
Marc Daniel Nelson's plugin.
Marc Daniel Nelson. So he gave you their suite of plugins.
Yep. The MDN tapes was the release.
Yeah, and the one that we were most excited about, which was the new one, which was the MDN tape. Mm-hmm. Cool. Bro, I don't like the name of it, eh?
Oh, it's it's a bit convoluted.
Every time I go to use it in my session, I'm like, the fucking
MDN
9-1, and I just type tape and it comes up. But I mean, yeah, let's not criticize it off the bat. But so you've been using this on your mixes. You also gave it to me to use, to try. Mm-hmm. Do you want to go first? Talk about.
No, you go. Okay, I'm keen to hear your thoughts because people know my thoughts from my channel as well.
So if you go to Mitch's channel, Mitch has the DIY recording studio, does lots of great gear reviews, does lots of really in-depth, really nerdy,
super nerdy.
Yeah, like deep dives on this stuff, the stuff that we won't cover here because it's too time consuming and I don't understand it. So that's all Mitch.
Yep.
Anyway, so this thing, it started. Like I said, Mitch was given the license. You've never been a fan of tape machine plugins.
No.
You stated that on this podcast and your own podcast a few times.
Yep.
Which is interesting because I've never heard that before.
Yeah.
I've never ever heard that someone doesn't
Everyone loves them?
Everyone likes tape plugins, man.
I'll give you the reason why I don't like them.
Yeah.
Is that I always found they squished the source material in a way that didn't work for me in whatever my chains were.
Yeah.
And like that could just be something I'm doing within my chain that those previous plugins don't work.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah. It's all about the approach and what you want from it.
Yeah.
And it's funny because when you said at first you were like, oh, I don't like that it compresses. And that I was just like, what do you mean?
Because I'm already doing so much compression.
I know. I get that. I think
I didn't need it.
I think because everyone, in my mind, I associate tape with compression also. So for you to say that you don't want compression, I'm just like, oh, I don't understand.
Yeah, like when I've used tape plugins before, I felt the way they clamp down isn't a pleasing type of compression.
Once you've said it, it makes total sense to me.
Yeah.
At first, I was like, I don't get. But yeah, you just want the tone of the tape without the effects of the compression.
Yeah, or like I want the saturation. I want it to sort of tame some of that harshness. But that's what I mean. Like
the
all
character
those things.
of tape, you want that without the effect of the compression.
Yeah,
dude, it's so fun. So after you said that to me, I used this and I put it onto a session, and I was like, oh, I'd love some bit more. Like, I actually thought to myself, I'd love the effects of tape without the compression. Yeah, I actually had that thought. I was like, whoa, this is where Mitch is at. So yeah, I chucked it on. Right. So immediately, the first thing you hear is like we were talking about the width thing, right?
Yeah.
And we noticed that we only hear the width when you crank the input, is that right?
It definitely does get wider. I think the width does impart itself, but as you drive, it will. Yeah.
Okay, I'm getting a bit ahead of myself here. Let's just walk everyone through the controls. So the first is the low-high shelf. It is what it says it is. It's a low and high boost. It's very soft, very wide, very musical. Agree?
Yeah.
Great, cool. So it's really cool for general shaping like you would on a mix. Or even actually it's great for single sources. Say if your source is too dark, too bright, you can kind of use it like a tilt shift.
Yeah, Pulsar kind of style, shelves.
Just shelf. Like shelf EQs are fucking great.
Yep.
I slept on shelf EQ for way too long, dude.
Same.
And now I would prefer big wide shelves than sharp. Anyway, that's a conversation for another day.
Yep.
So the next thing is the bias, which is the high and low bias. You will better explain this than I will.
Yeah, it's to do with how the tape reacts to the high and low frequencies.
Okay.
When you bias a machine, you're essentially tuning for the tape and the headroom and a bunch of other factors with how the tape will be hit. And it also can factor in the amount of saturation.
The way I think about it is the way the machine reacts to those frequencies.
Yes.
Low and high. So if typically turning low to the left makes things darker.
Okay.
Right? Is that right? In most, I'm trying to think of my other units that have biasing on the front. I'm pretty sure left is dark, right is brighter on most of my units. Anyway.
Okay.
So again,
but that's got two knobs, low and high.
Exactly,
separate,
which is
so that's
unusual.
A bit different.
So again, that's just a further tone shaping tool. That's all you need to think about it as.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Input, output. Is what it says it is. When on a tape, usually tape machines, you have the input low, it tends to affect the tone less. The sound, like it'll affect the transients less, it'll have input less distortion. It'll do the tape thing less, basically. So if you want to push it harder, you push the input, and these are connected via this control, which does the auto gain for you, in and out, very useful. So basically, if you want to feel the effects of the tape saturation more, you just push it harder. Different tape style, that's all that is. It's a different tone. IPS is how
inches per second. So it's how much tape passes through.
But again, because this is a plug-in, it's not. It's just a tone control again, isn't it?
The slower you go, the more of a low end bump.
That's right.
And the more of a high end roll.
Yeah.
So if some have 7.5 as IPS, and then you'll get a really exaggerated bump.
And 30, you get more of like the hi-fi kind of sound, like a bit more top end in it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Cool. More detail because it passes through more tape.
Yeah, right. Okay. Right? So that's basically the walkthrough of the machine. The other thing they don't show you in that photo is at the bottom they have a why can't I find it? Where is it?
A delay, the tape delay.
The tape delay, and what was the other? There was like a phaser.
A flange.
Flange, that's right. Yeah. I remember last time there was a photo we could look at. Anyway, down the bottom, if you click this little down thing, it's got like a tape delay and a flange. Both super useful for single sources.
The tape cool delay sounds. On vocals I found was so usable and one of the coolest sounding delays, not the best delay, but a very cool sounding delay that I've already used on a track that I really like. Very, very cool.
So that's the walkthrough of the way it works. So how does it sound?
You go.
Okay,
you
great.
tell me.
Right.
Yeah.
So to put this in context, I have a couple tape hardware emulation machines. I have a Anamod ATS1. Super special boutique niche piece of gear, and I also have a Empirical Labs Fatso, which I wouldn't call that a tape emulator. People do, I wouldn't. And that's it. I've used.
They call it a tape emulator.
They do, yeah.
The Fatso is.
It's to me, it's like a saturator compressor box together, which is effectively what a tape is, right? Yeah. So I guess you could call it that. That's not kind of the way I use it, but that's a conversation for another day. The other tape units I've used is the slate tape, which you've used, right?
Yeah.
Weren't a fan of?
Not a fan of that one.
Yeah, that's fine. And then the soft tube tape, I own this one. I recommend this one to people. I like it. And then the other one is the Waves tape. Is that the...
There's two Waves tapes.
There's
the Kramer tape and the J37. I've used both of those.
I think the Kramer tape is the one that's used more often, would you say? That's the one I've seen.
A lot of older engineers have that one.
I think that's the one that's been around for longer.
Yeah.
So let's not talk about that one. Let's just have this one in the conversation. So if we're talking about tape plugins, this is kind of what's available in terms of what's popular at the moment. So what do we got in terms of price? I think this one's like 150, 149 to own outright. Yeah. This one's 99. This one, Waves prices are fucking always silly.
Always cheap. Yeah.
And then...
dollar store discounts.
So this one at 179 US is by far the most expensive.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, we didn't talk about UAD. UAD tape, they have the most expensive one. Theirs is like $300 or something like that.
That's crazy for a plugin.
It's, I mean, that's fucking...
The Pulsar Modular stuff is pricey. Like, it is pricey.
But it also is a very classy gear.
Yeah, like the stuff I've used so far sounds good.
Yep.
That if I wouldn't recommend everyone go out and spend $170 on a plugin or $200 or $300 on a plugin. Oh, if you're just starting out mixing, it's probably not for you yet. But let's talk about what the plugin does.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe.
So if you want something that's going to do the tape sound. It does a really nice stereo widening thing too, which you don't really get from a lot of tape plugins. No. I mean, it gives you that sense of width, but you don't have control over a widening thing in a plugin, do you? Most of the time.
No.
So you really like that.
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed that on guitars. Yep. It's really cool. This thing sounds great on single sources, on mix bus. Yeah, I found it, I really liked it in combination with like other units that do saturation too.
Cool.
So if I put like FabFilter Satin in front of it and like saturate it and then do the tape thing, that's really cool.
Nice.
What about you? How have you been using it?
Drum bus.
Yep.
Mix bus.
Yep.
Primarily.
Yep.
Unreal. Just does the thing you want on drums where... You know, it's going to tame the transients just that little bit.
Yep.
It's going to open up the image because it's got that widening effect.
Yep.
It helps bring up the rooms in a cool way, so you get a sense of depth from the room mics coming up.
Yep.
And then on the mix bus, I think we were chatting before about it, where like it does this really cool thing to the guitars.
Yep.
And that you heard that, right?
Yep. I agree with that.
It brings up the guitars in this cool way.
It kind of makes them louder without them being louder.
Yeah.
Which is always good.
Yeah. And it just adds more width again to a mix. And like I said, I didn't like a lot of tape plugins. I also don't like a lot of widening plugins because they get weird, phasey
they
things.
get phasey and strange. Yeah.
This doesn't do that. From what I've heard so far, it does it in a much more pleasing way. So it removes the way I can justify the price. Is it gives you a widener and a tape saturator in one plugin that are better than the wideners and tape plugins I've used before.
I agree with that actually.
And so like it's a plugin that is indispensable to me now. Like I will always use it because it does a thing that nothing else does for me in hardware or software.
Yeah. I actually I was pretty skeptical that another tape thing would work its way into my rotation, but it has. I like it.
Yeah, that's cool.
I actually really like it. Like I've got like 2 or 3 tape plugins and also hardware units. So like, why would I need another one? But it does something different. It's really cool. Did you see they put the true tape hiss generator?
Yeah.
Specified that it's not noise. Thanks for that, guys.
Yeah.
We needed that.
Yeah, not noise. Yeah, clarified that it's not noise.
Oh man, that's funny. Just quickly, $179 for a plugin. That's right on the edge of what I consider to be too much for a plugin.
Yeah.
So like I've only bought a handful of plugins that have been over the $300 mark, and it was a big deal.
Yeah.
For a couple of reasons. First of all, I think like this is not shitting on plugin manufacturers. This is my opinion on software in general. I think buying software is throwing your money away. Yes, it's great to use the stuff and to have the use, but if I buy a piece of hardware, I can go and sell that hardware.
100%.
You know what I mean?
I have this. I couldn't agree with you more.
I see people trying to sell plugins, and I think it's crazy because why would I go and buy your secondhand plugin? I should go fucking buy the plugin. But so while I plugins are great, it is you'll never get your money back.
No.
Which is a shame.
Yeah.
Like I said, I've only spent over say $200 on a plugin a few times, and they have to be pretty special.
Yeah.
Like Soothe.
Yep.
Golfos. Things that they do stuff that I not only don't know what they do, but I can't get from anything else.
Absolutely. ProQ. All the Fat Filter stuff. Sorry.
Actually, Fat Filter is again on the line for me because it's like I think I paid like $500-$600 for the bundle. Like that's a lot of money for plugins, man.
Yeah, but with the limiter and EQ, like they're indispensable to me for tidying stuff up. And whatever.
Like a lot of these things can be indispensable tools, and I think this one probably comes very close to that.
Yeah.
Which makes the price justification, like you can do it.
Yeah. And like for me, like on what you were saying, like with hardware, like this is the thing, guys, that you got to remember that hardware is kind of like a bit of an investment. It's an investment as a tool for your craft and what you're doing. But as you said, you can resell this stuff and a lot of it holds its value. So like it, and like if you're going to spend $300 on a plugin, maybe you can get, save that money and get an affordable 1176 or an affordable preamp.
You spend $500 or $600 and then you might always get that money back.
Yeah.
You spend $300, it's gone.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a pretty rough thing to say while we're talking about plugins, but let's segue to this thing.
Yeah.
So we also touched on this last week, right?
Yeah.
And I hadn't had a chance to use it yet.
Yep.
But thanks to the Pulsar guys, I've used this one now. So just quickly, I was talking to a guy named Lewis Johns. Shout out Lewis. He's a UK-based engineer. He's quite good at what he does. I like his stuff. I recently downloaded he's got these massive drums on sound on Splice. Definitely recommend this. I took a bunch of his stuff. I told him too that I nicked a bunch of his sounds that I've been using on my mixes. They're great. Thank you, Lewis. So I was chatting to Lewis, and Lewis has watched this podcast a few times, and he mentioned to me that he used the Sidecar, and it actually replaced his hardware chain on his mix bus.
That's crazy.
And dude, at first I straight up didn't believe him. I was like, that's a really nice plug for the company. Looking at the stuff that you own, I don't believe you.
Yeah.
Sorry, Lewis. And then, so I used it myself, and I was like, oh, actually, I can see how anyone could replace, if you've got a simple mix bus chain that is EQ, saturation, compression,
and widening again.
Maybe. I don't think this thing has widening.
It does, yeah.
Oh, it does in that little top thing. That's right, yeah. So, it's kind of like an all-in-one for your mix bus. So the reason this one for me, the reason I could see why someone like Lewis would actually do this is because it does have all the things that you want in a mix bus, and it does them in a really nice, classy way.
Yeah.
My only criticism of the EQ section was going to be that it was in 2 dB increments. Until you showed me that guy there changes it to 1 times, which is 2 dB. 0.5, which is 1 dB, or 0.25, which is half a dB. Which for mastering, that's all you want. I mean, most of the time. We've got input saturation. We got 2 different types of saturation. There's even a bias. The summing is cool. So you and I tried that.
What was the go with that again?
So basically the 8-channel summing had this really wide, deep sense of, I think depth is the only word I can use.
And width.
Depth and width. Wide. It was wide, it was deep, it was exciting.
And the 2-channel was more focused,
brought everything together and forward, which... Again, super exciting. Depending on what you want.
What I liked about that, and once again with the tape plugin as well, is that they're giving you things that are super usable, the changing of a stereo image and stuff, and having the control to change that and pick that. I think that makes the plugins a bit more usable in that way too.
So you came into the studio, and I was actually using these the other day, and I had them stacked into each other. And that was really cool too.
The Sidecar into the tape. That was a vibe. That was definitely a vibe.
Dude. I reckon with those 2 things together, I could almost get away with that. I choose not to because I like hardware. But fucking
if you didn't have the hardware,
if I didn't
have the
hardware,
budget.
If I was on a laptop mixing somewhere, this is what I'd use. Absolutely.
Dude, 100%. And I can vouch that EQ section to me is the first time I've heard a API EQ plugin sound like an API.
Did you AB them?
No, I haven't yet.
I bet
I will be.
I bet that you're the real things. I bet the hardware smokes it.
We always come back to the fact that hardware still wins, in an AB. But this had when I hear API EQs, there's a nice, not clean top end, but you can push the high end on API EQs on the 550s and stuff like that. But there's this grunt to the low mids and stuff, and then there's a tightness to the lows, and that EQ has it. And I was like, oh, this sounds like, because I've used other API like UAD API, clone emulations, the wave stuff obviously, and those all sound way too clean to me. I'm like, where's the oomph, the grit, and the real?
I think that word you used, grit, is probably the best one for API, and the tightness of the low end. I think that's something that you don't get in any other EQ. You make. I want to go and buy. I want a pair of. Is it 550Bs?
Which ones?
The 4-band.
The 4-band, 550Bs.
Bs? Yeah, I think that's my next thing.
So you can get the 550As, Cappy do. And that, I've got those that you've used those before.
That's the 3-channel,
That's the 3-channel.
They're really good too.
And then there's the graphic EQs and stuff as well.
I always prefer 4-bands if I can.
I get it. I get it. So do I, actually. I find it way more usable.
I mean, realistically, there should be a low and high mid control on everything. On every guitar amp should have a low and high mid control, I think. So, that's really cool. This bottom section has a Fairchild vibe to it. Would you say?
The compressor section?
It looks like a Fairchild. I think the fact that it's got the different ratios suggests that it is similar to that.
It's actually a couple of different compressors.
That's right, you said that. Cool. All right.
So it's got a couple of different compressor emulations baked into it with the different settings. So it behaves differently. So it can behave like a Fairchild, it can behave like an SSL, it can behave like a few different things.
Whatever
I haven't dived into the compression side of it much.
It sounds good. It really does sound good. I think it's very easy to have a mix bus compressor not be the right one. Not be the right thing. But I put this through a few mixes, and every mix sounded good. Every time it was good, which is... that's not easy to do.
No. I've often slapped plugins on mixes and they're often the wrong one. But this definitely has some flexibility to it. Could be super useful.
Hell yeah. Yeah, cool. All right. I think that's Pulsar. Thank you very much, guys. I've been really enjoying.
Cheers to Pulsar. Cheers to Marc and Nelson, man.
I'm going to dig my hands in down here. I'm particularly interested in some of these EQs and saturators. So I might try those and let you know.
Hell yeah.
Cool. Yeah. All right. Sweet. So now we can jump into this session. Yeah. All right. Cool. So I have brought in a session that I did the other week with a band called Rocks Free. They're from Port Macquarie on the east coast of Australia. they're doing really well.
Yeah.
Really popular at the moment. You could look up their social media. I think their TikTok's kind of blowing up.
Yeah, their shorts and stuff are sick.
Yep. Yeah, let's go just check out Instagram quickly. So I think, here they are. Rocks Ferry. There's Paddy. What's up, Pat boy? Yeah, so these guys, they're from Port, doing really well. Two brothers. They kind of got like a royal bloody... don't know how else you would describe it. It's like fair. Rage meets your Royal Blood.
Yeah,
very riff based. Anyway, so we did a recording. Actually, there's some photos from it here. That's cool. So this is from.
Are you screen capturing still?
I think so. Yeah. Cool. Cool. So this is from the session the other week at Wood River. Which is run by Joe Anderson. Shout out, Joe. Thanks for having me all the time.
Shout out, Joe.
Yep. That's Jake on my 1969 Ludwig. Love that kit.
Nice.
What is going on here? Yeah, so it's a 24-14, I think it's 13 and 16-inch toms
nice.
in this photo. It's got another tom that we didn't use. And then some mics in the garage. This is preamps that we used. I wonder if you can hear a little bit of that. No, we can't. Who cares? Yeah. So anyway, so I've brought in the session itself to show you guys just some sound samples. I'm really actually particularly proud of the tones from this recording. I think not only does Jake hit hard and really well, but I was able to take my time. We did a whole album, which was like 12 songs. So yeah, we took our time with it. We made sure it was really like everything was well mic'd, everything was well recorded. A lot of time and thought put into everything.
Cool.
Anyway, so yeah, I brought in the session so I can walk everyone through the sounds. Should we just get into it?
Yeah,
let's
go.
All right, cool.
Headphones on.
Yeah, chuck them on. So we're not going to worry about any of these stems, anything. We're just here to listen to the drum kit. Let's have a look at it.
And just before we roll on that, there's no processing on it.
No. So this, completely raw. That was the point.
This is just tracked in.
Yeah. This was the point of this. So the only thing I did use was a little bit of EQ on the way in with certain hardware. Mm-hmm. Actually, I do have the input list. So what I want to do is go through, listen to all the sounds, go through how each one was captured. And then, just talk about it. Talk about what we like, what we don't like, things that I think I can do better next time.
Mad.
And maybe we can share some stuff, if you want to ask me certain things about how we did it. But let's have a quick look at the kit sound. Cool. I'm just going to go through and solo some instruments to start with. Monsterish. Anyway,
dude.
Yeah, do you like it?
So well dialed
cool.
in.
Thanks,
like,
bro.
It's so well dialed in. Like, I like that you've split your cymbals and your shells and stuff. That's something I've got to start doing.
Oh, the session?
I love that. But like, your tom spill sounds awesome anyway.
Dude, it actually sounds great. Hey,
it's crazy.
So that's the one thing I think about using condensers and particularly 414s on toms is the spill is actually nice.
Yeah.
So you can gate it, but if you don't do a great job of gating it, it's not going to ruin the drum performance.
Yeah.
Which how often can you say that?
Yeah, unreal.
Yeah.
And then the room mics obviously straight off the bat sound incredible.
Yeah. So
sounds sick.
Like what I said, I haven't actually done anything to this. The only thing I have done is done some time and phase alignment with Auto Align. I'm a fan of this plugin. It makes things quick and easy. Have you used it?
I've not used Auto Align.
How do you do time and phase aligning?
I just put my mics in the right place.
Oh, fuck you. Good one, dude.
Got it.
All right, cool. Let's start with just going through some sounds. Let's go through each channel one at a time. I'll tell you what mics I use, what preamps I use. Yeah,
Mad.
The thought process behind it. From the top. So the kick in is an RE20. Everyone's familiar with that mic's pretty straightforward. Sounds like this.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's about if this is the head of the drum skin, it's probably 2/3 of the way through.
Yeah, cool.
Just with a little bit of the back sticking out, aimed directly at the beater. That went into a Chandler Germanium preamp, which is probably my favorite preamp for low end.
Cool.
There's nothing that does the grit and the low end that thing can do.
Yeah.
Especially it's got a thick switch on it. You engage that and it's just like it's too much.
Yeah. Wow.
So that went into a Heritage Audio 1073 EQ. I think I dug out a little bit of 400 and I put in a little bit of. That's it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I dug in out a little
Just
bit of
some low
400.
mid.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And all these preamps went into a Antelope Orion 32 Plus Gen 3. Cool. Next mic is a kick out, which was just a sub kick.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like the sub kick.
I mean, everyone knows what that is. Like, it's pretty straightforward. Together. Yep. I'll take the sub out. Back in.
It's crazy how much a sub kick adds, man.
You can really, like, if you choose the right in mic, you can get away with just like in and a sub kick.
Yep.
It's really
100%.
good. My favorite drum micing setup is, kick mic setup is usually two inside and two outside, which is inside is usually a condenser and a dynamic. Outside is a condenser and dynamic. But yeah, you can usually get that sound with just a in and then a sub kick.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Anyway, let's move on to the snare top. Now the snare top was the ATM. What is this thing called? ATM 250DE.
Yeah, that thing looks sick.
Audio Technica dual element mic. So Joel bought this one many, many years ago. I didn't use it for many, many years. I've kind of like come back to it recently for a couple of reasons. So my ideal snare mic is a 57 and then maybe a Bayer 201 next to it, or maybe like a 184 or an Octava. What are they called? MK012. Yeah, another killer one.
Yep.
So yeah, ideally those are my favorite mics. This, however, though, is conveniently packaged. It's perfectly phase and time aligned. It's I don't have to have two stands there. I don't have to have two microphones taped to each other. Yep. I don't have to line the capsules up. Everything's perfectly. It works perfectly.
Yeah,
so
just put the one mic there.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things. Like I think I saw George Lever use it, who's another UK-based engineer, and I really like what he does. And I was like, well, why don't I just use this because I've got one?
Yep.
Anyway, so I've been using this for the last 2 or 3 sessions. I really like it. I'll probably continue to keep using it. Let's have a listen to how it sounds. So the dynamic sounds like this. Yep, switch to the condenser. It almost sounds like it's lower in tone, hey? Here's that drum, and then doesn't the condenser sound like it's lower pitched or something? Doesn't to you?
It's got more body.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, so from the dynamic I hear that really nice spike that I like from a dynamic, and the condenser has that smiley thing. It's got that low end, it's got the high end. I almost hear the snare wires.
Yep.
Combined together. I'll take the condenser out.
So good.
Yeah. It's actually a really nice balanced picture. Let's put the condenser back in. I usually blend it about -6.
It's such a good blend.
Dude, doesn't that sound like a great snare?
Yeah.
Really good. All right,
Yeah.
cool. Under snare was a 57. We don't need to talk about that.
Yep.
We can just blend it in though. Yeah.
Nice.
That sounds like a snare
Does
drum.
the thing.
Yep, cool. Sorry, I should just mention quickly that the ATM went through a VP28, pair of VP28s, and then the snare under was through a VP26, all cappy.
Cappies.
The reason I choose cappy over Neve, when I want big, thick, juicy bottom end, that's 1073.
Yep.
When I want tight, forward, punchy, bright, that's cappy.
100%.
Cool.
Couldn't agree preamp wise on that more. So cappies are API preamps, guys.
So I usually what that means is like I'll put a 1073 on kick because I want that low, fat, juicy, and then I'll put an API on snare because I want the snare to pop forward past everything else.
Yep.
I'll often choose API for toms as well because they're such a low instrument. They're so bottom heavy. I want to top heavy pre to balance that with.
Yeah.
I do want to touch quickly at some point on not only the choices I made, but why we make those choices. Yeah, maybe let's do that at the end while we get to the end. All right, cool.
Cool.
So toms, as we mentioned just earlier, are 414s.
414s.
Yep. Let's just have a quick look at this.
It's so good.
It's simple. It's like they sound round and full. They've got the attack that you want. There's something about. Do you find that condensers on toms sound less constricted? They sound more open.
Yeah, yeah, more open.
You hear more room.
Yeah, you can definitely hear more of the room, which is actually a good thing.
On toms, it's great.
Toms, yeah. It just sounds so detailed.
Yeah, I'll see if I can find a big Tommy section. What about this?
That's unreal.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we don't need to hear those too much. We know what Tom's mic sounds like.
No EQ on the way in?
Nothing.
Dude.
That's completely raw.
That's so good.
Don't they sound good?
Yeah.
They were the 414 CULS, I think, the new ones.
Yeah. What a lot of people don't know about the 414 is that it has a bit of a scoop in the mids around 1-2K, which is what you want on a tom anyway, like around 1K sometimes. So, and then they have the peak where you want it and the low response. So the 414 is actually an ideal frequency response as a starting point.
I was talking to one of these these really seasoned vet engineers, and he was like telling me how he doesn't like the new 414s, and I was like, I don't get it. Whatever. I use them. I don't like them either because the switches are all digital, which means that they don't work until you got phantom in there. So if I'm in the room and I'm setting my mics up and I got a 414, I don't know what polar pattern it's on. I don't know what roll off it's on. I don't anything until there's power through it. And usually once there's power through it, it's too late, right? You're already in the control room. Anyway, don't like that about the new 414s.
Yep.
But tonally, they sound great.
Yeah.
Let's keep going. Okay, overheads also 414s. Let's have a look. I love how balanced that is, man. It's like
the imaging's good.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, I like that. Like they're kind of bright, but they're not harsh like an SCC. Like they're not spiky like you get from a small diaphragm. So
I never like small diaphragm condensers as overheads.
Bro, I've
tried them so many times.
I switch back and forth all the time, and I think it depends on the player, the kit, the song. You know, there's. Geez, what's this? Oh, whatever. It depends on so many things. It depends on what I'm going for. It's like I usually go for small diaphragms on, say, extreme metal, where I'm going to carve heaps of the low end out anyway.
That makes
sense. All I want is splash in the top end. So that's when I use it. But because these guys are a bit more of a realistic, full picture rock band, I wanted to get the full picture in the overheads. I want to hear shells. I want to hear room, all of it.
Yep.
So the 414s went through JLM preamp, which was his version of a 1073. I've talked about JLM heaps. I will continue to spruik that guy because his gear is fantastic.
Australia represent.
Yep.
Joe Malone, if you don't know him, JLM from Brizzy.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
Excellent.
All right, cool. The other thing I did differently in this session was I had a 414 overhead rear behind the kit. Let's see if there's a photo of it. Sorry, not a 414, a 121. Yep, there you go. So
121.
Yeah. So right there, it's. I should also mention that these have all been distance measured from the snare drum.
Nice.
I like about 1.5 meters. That's just where I've landed. So yeah, the left to right 414s are 1.5, and so is the 121. I'll show you how it sounds different, and it does sound very different. So here, let's skip from the 414s first. All right, bear in mind the 121's mono. I hear more shells. I hear more attack from the shell.
Yep.
Let's get back. See, there's not a lot in the way of like upper mid attack in those 414s.
Yeah, it's all the top. It's a snap.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's a lot of bottom end in it. All right, let's go back to the. There's a nice poke.
Sounds
there.
like a ribbon to me.
Yeah. Let's combine them. Here we go.
Oh.
All right, I'm going to turn the middle one off. Snare disappears. Back on again. Oh,
yeah.
How's that snare? Yeah, dude. Yeah. Just
so good.
So the reason I did that in this project, and I wouldn't do it in like say an extreme metal project, because you don't need the snare drum to be taking that much up that much room in say fast metal, because there's so much information happening.
Yeah.
But with a band like this, and you go bah, bah, I want to feel that snare drum in my face. So I'm trying to fill the center image a little bit more in this recording than I normally would. Hence the overhead center.
Very cool.
Yep.
Very cool. Love
Hats and ride were both. Overhead center 121 went through a VP26. I want to say you can hear it, but I don't know if you can. So the hats and ride were both Neumann KM85s, not 185s and not 184s, KM85s.
Okay.
So they're an old 80s one that Joe found. I've never seen them before. They have a roll-off that starts at 300 hertz.
Whoa.
Yeah, huge roll-off. And I think it moves down by quite large steps, like 6 dB octaves or something. Like, it's considerable for a microphone.
Wow.
Yeah. So what you end up with is not much low end in it, and you get that nice rolled off thing, which is what
Perfect for cymbals.
what you're going to do on a cymbal anyway. So let's have a quick listen.
Yeah.
Not much low end in that, and it's pleasant. Let's chuck them in with the overheads. Turn them off. On. So all I'm looking for there is just a little poke on the transient so I can hear the attack of the hats and ride.
Can you just show us I'm just really interested in how the hats sound.
Yep.
Because I'm always looking for a good hats mic.
Let's have a look. Let's find a closed hat section. I think we should preface this by saying I don't know if I've ever found a hi-hat mic I like.
Yeah.
Ever.
I'm just always interested because it's such a hard instrument because it's got that low mid honk.
It's gross. It's like miking the underside of a snare. It's never going to sound good.
Yeah.
I think though.
It's about the context.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think you need a bit of that ugliness, right? You need a bit of that distortion, that 4K bombastic, that gross, pokey shit. Yep. Otherwise it's not going to sound real.
No.
Anyway, so but I'm with you, dude. Cool. I think I've tried SM7B on hats. I've tried
same.
SDCs, LDCs.
Yep.
I haven't tried ribbon yet. Have you?
No.
Dude, 121 on a hat might work. Because you get some
I've got
room.
a session tomorrow.
Dude. Do you want to borrow mine? Do you need one?
No, I've got enough.
That's right. Yeah, cool. Yeah. Great. All right. Let's move on to...
Remind me.
Yeah. Preamps for those ones were Great River. I use the Great River preamps because they are really rolled off in the high end. They're really smooth and hi-hats and ride are not. So my aim there was to counter the gnarliness of those cymbals with the smoothness of the preamp.
Yeah, very cool.
Yep.
Good choice.
Good. Now we're down to the R88, my favourite part of the whole drum kit. So this was placed, let's see if we can reference an image here. I think you can see the R88. Yeah, cool. So the R88 is right there. And that is this microphone. So it is a stereo...
Bloomline ribbon.
Stereo Bloomline ribbon, right? Yep. Cool. Oh, shit, it looks like it's been moving a little bit. It's got shock mounts in here. I never noticed. Anyway, so it's got two quite substantial ribbons. They're about that long. One faces that direction and the other one faces that direction. So and because they're figure eight, one's capturing that way and that way and that way and that way. So you essentially get a 360-degree picture of the room.
Yep.
Without incorporating the top and bottom. We're talking this way.
Yep.
Anyway, so this is the active version. I love this microphone. It might be my favorite mic. Yeah, it might be the one that that if you were to take everything else, that I would just ask you that you leave me that.
Yep.
Anyway, let's have a look at it. So that went into the JLM Dual 99V, which is just a big, thick kind of, I think it's a 1073 style. It might not be, but it's a dual op amp, preamp, whatever that means.
Cool.
Here we go. I love the stereo image too. You can hear the cymbal go from one ear to the other. Especially when he does a tom fill. I think there's a tom fill down here. See if we can hear it.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Can't really hear the movement there, but
but it's not an overly, like when you do stereo pairs. Yeah. Stereo pairing and stereo techniques can, because of their interrelationship with each other, with the mics and phasing and stuff like that, can have gaps and have width issues. That is natural. Like
100%.
That to me sounds like a drum kit in a room.
That's exactly what I was going for.
It's fucking unreal.
So that is panned 60 left and 60 right. Maybe that's why it feels natural. Let's see. Let's pan it hard. I never pan it hard. Let's find out. That's a hard left. That sounds really good. Yeah, but it's exaggerated.
The kick gets a bit too wide.
Now let's go back to 60. I like you said, I like how the low end feels centered.
It's really good.
Yeah. Fuck, man, that mic's worth every cent.
Yeah, and like there's the thing. If this is the first time you're hearing ribbons on a drum kit, it was like when I first heard a ribbon on a drum kit, it was the most mind-blowing thing I'd ever heard. I was like, why isn't this talked about more often?
Yeah.
They do a thing that no other mic does, especially in the lows and the low mids.
Yeah.
The way they pick up a kick drum in a natural way is unbelievable.
My favourite thing is the way they seem to favour shells over cymbals.
Yes.
Probably because they're so rolled off in the high end.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. I think it is crazy that they're not talked about enough.
I think like they're coming back into popularity over the last few years. So they're starting to come back. There's more affordable options. There's lots of different options. They were out of favour for so long. When I studied, we had no ribbons. There weren't any. There was one active ribbon, and it was it sounded like shit. It was atrocious.
Yeah.
When I built a ribbon for the first time and used a real passive ribbon, I was like, holy crap, like this is another world.
Yeah, dude.
Like they're a different beast of a microphone, and they could sound very natural, but in the right way.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Love them.
So that's the R88, and then let's move to the room center. I'll show you the placement of that guy if I can. I don't know if I'll be able to show you. Yeah, so the room C was, if we look back at this this first image, so that distance between the kit and the R88, it's about that again. So I would call that probably, it looks like the R88 is about 2 meters from the kit, so the room C is probably 4 to 5 meters from the kit.
Yep.
Center of the room pointing straight at the kit.
And what's your room center?
It is Pulsar P67, which is just Pulsar's take on the U67, large diaphragm tune mic. That one's going into JLM NV 1073. Let's have a look at it. It's quite dark. It's quite hard as well, which I kind of like. Let's just compare it with the R88. I'm going to take the room C out now. I love what it does to the center image. Put it back in. Yeah, just thickens that center. It's
transient. Similar to your overhead and ribbon center in that it's just adding this up the guts like center image that like you don't realize there's a lack in the center. I was actually until you
feel that gap. Yep.
Yeah, 100%. And then as soon as you add that center mic, it's like, oh, whoa.
And that's the other thing is like I'm trying to think about the shape of the kit in the context of the mix too, because realistically the drum kit should be taking up a large portion of the center and probably trail off into the sides, which is where the guitars take up the rest.
That's an awesome description of stereo imaging in a mix, man. Yeah.
So that's kind of what I'm thinking of is like I want to fill the sides, but I really want the majority of the kit to live in the center because that's where the energy is going to be. That's where the speaker's going to handle it best, and then I can leave room for the guitars out wide. Yep. Let's go on to the far room left and right. Now these are at space the same distance from the center kit, but they are 2 pencil condensers off to the side, pointing in at the drum kit about 2 meters off the ground.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, so they're really high, really wide, facing inwards. Now I usually use the octavers, but all I had for this were a pair of Neumann 184s, and they actually turned out really well. Let's have a look. So
KM 184s?
KM 184s, yep. So the aim with these is I want something splashy, bright to fill the sides. I want something really exciting but very light. Okay. I don't want weight in my sides because this goes back to the guitar thing is I want to leave space for the guitars in the sides. Yeah. So the point of these is I'm going to roll the bottom off quite a lot, and all I'm going to have is the splish splash of that room sound, which pairs really nicely with guitars. Yeah. So you know that
sit on top.
Exactly. Yep. And they kind of mesh together and you get this unified thing happening.
Sick.
That's my aim with those.
Very cool.
And then we're almost done here. So the last ones are the garage. So this is...
we haven't heard do you want to show us again?
Oh, sorry. I cut them off pretty quick. Yeah. All right. Let's get the other room mics going. I'm just going to feed the wide rooms in. Let's get them low. Feed them in. That's about where I like them. So, hang on. I'll just take you to start here, and I'm just going to turn them on and off. Have a listen. See how we lose a lot of brightness? It's very center heavy. And then that adds this presence back to the drum kit that we were missing before. Out. Just a sense of width, accentuate the room a bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm after there. So the last ones are the garage mics, and the garage mics are by far the coolest part of this whole recording. It's kind of what inspired me to do this segment today is these garage mics.
Yep.
So, let's go back to those photos. So at Wood River, there is quite a considerable, the tracking room is here. We're looking at it. The control room is to our left. There's a garage to our right. It's probably the same size as the tracking room, a little bit smaller. It's a big reflective surface. You can see the walls are concrete, the ground's concrete. Yep. There's a roller metal door. It's a big concrete echo chamber, essentially. Yeah. And it's an L-shaped room. And so what I've done is I've used the OPR pill in a ORTF setup. So they're about the same distance as your ears, spaced at roughly the same angle as your ears, to represent the human head, essentially. I've used figure eights in thinking first of all, I wanted to capture these with ribbons because I wanted it to be smooth. The figure eights I thought would pick up more of the room. That's cool. We're just really after heaps of bombastic craziness here. You can see I've used an inline pre. That's just to boost the signal because these are quite soft. Yeah. These are the OPR pill F mod, which is the full mod, which is the highest range one. So basically, Marc, he mods these and custom builds his own mics. I'm a huge OPR fan. He's got a new mic coming out soon. I can't wait for that. We're talking about demoing it on this channel, which I'm super excited for. Yeah. Anyway. And
another Australian.
Hell yeah, dude. Yeah. He's
manufacturer.
He's from Melbourne and he's been at it I've been buying mics off him for 15 years. Yep. And yeah, killer. Anyway, let's listen to the garage.
Oh.
Dude, can you imagine if your room mic sounded like that in your house?
So good.
Yeah. Cool. They're just panned hard left and right. You can tell one of them there's more bottom end in one. There's a little bit more transient in the other one. All I did to counter that was I did an EQ match with Pro Q3 from one to the other, and then I also added a transient designer to one, decreasing the attack, increasing the sustain, so they matched a bit better. That's all I did.
That's clever.
Yep. So that is through the Sebitron preamp, which is another Australian company. Great. Yeah. These are a tube preamp. Normally I wouldn't put a ribbon into a tube preamp, but
they go good in tubes though, man.
Sometimes. Yeah. It depends on what you're using. Anyway, so this has worked really well. So let's just have a look at the room mics because that's really what I'm interested in here. I'm just going to feed, I'm going to start with the R88 and I'm going to feed the other room mics in. Then I'm going to feed the rest of the kit in and just bring it in and out so you guys can hear what's happening. Cool. Start with the R88. Now I'll try and balance this like I would if I was mixing. I'll do it a bit more exaggerated than I normally would just so we can listen, enjoy. Fucking hell. Yeah, cool. That feels good. And then bring the signals down. I usually live around here and bring some rims in. Dude, done. That's fucking wild, hey?
So good.
If someone sent me that sound for mixing, I'd be fucking over the moon, hey?
Dude, it's crazy. Yeah. It's crazy. Good room, good drummer as well. Good player.
Good player. Yeah.
Yeah. All helps. Yeah. But fuck, man, what a setup for drums.
Yeah. So it's taken me a while to reach this point with this particular location. I'm really happy with the way it's going. There's always room for improvement. So one thing, I'll say a few things about this recording and things I think I can improve on, and then I want to talk a little bit about the choices that I made and why. So this, you can hear that there's more bottom end in the left than right.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so you tell me what you think. So this is my strategy for fixing this problem. So I thought because I've got space pair in the room.
What mics are we talking about here?
184s, the high rooms.
High rooms. Cool.
So because they're spaced so far apart, they are aiming at the same thing. But I think so on one side of the room there's a bunch of cabs and cases, which is kind of creating like a bass trap.
Yep.
The other corner of the room doesn't have any of that. There's some heads in there, but it's essentially a bare wall. Yep. So it would make sense that there's a lot more blow and build up in one end and the other.
Yeah, and this is obviously where you get into strife doing stereo
spaced pairs. Yeah, exactly. So my thinking was that if I go from a spaced pair to an ORTF setup, the two microphones are sitting in essentially the same acoustic environment, in the same space. So I'm thinking that might result in a more balanced...
Definitely balanced in the low
picture.
Because they're in the same spot.
Yeah, so that's what I was thinking.
So the low end sound waves are huge. They wrap around the mic.
Yep.
That's why they're building up when they're in certain corners.
Yep.
And whatever. So yeah, like that would make sense that the low end would be more balanced. The only other thing is where they're pointing.
Yeah.
It's going to change things too.
My philosophy with that would be to put them next to each other and point at the very edges of the kit, because I'm going to pan these mics the furthest of any of the microphones in my setup, and I want it to be the widest, essentially the widest parts of the kit.
Yeah.
So I think next time I'll try that, just so I can have a little bit more.
I'd be so keen to hear what that does.
Same, right?
Yeah.
All right, and then so the other thing I wanted to touch on is why I chose these microphones and these preamps. So I mentioned it earlier, and it's a bit of a rule that some people follow, is that when you've got a bright source, you mic it with a dark microphone and vice versa. Have you heard that rule before?
Yeah.
I heard it early, like very early into doing things. I've kind of kept it in the back of my head. It does really work for some things.
Yeah.
Obviously some things you want to exaggerate a bright thing with a bright mic and vice versa, but I'm talking generally if you want a neutral capture of a source and you've got something that's, say, a cymbal. That's why we really like ribbons on them, because ribbons are super dark, cymbals are super bright. You counter that. You don't want to put a really harsh source into a harsh mic, because then you're just left with harshness.
Totally.
So that kind of explains the microphone choice, is that, like, if I want a dark room, I'll go for a ribbon. If I want bright hats, I'll go for a condenser. And then my thinking with the preamp is it's twofold. It's based on the source, but it's also based on the microphone.
Yep.
So like I said to you, if I want a big subby thick low end, I'll choose a 1073.
Yep.
If I want tight low end and I want bright upper mids, I'll choose API. And then so I think the floor toms is a cool one to talk about, because if you say put a really low heavy floor tom mic into like a 1073, you can often get overloaded with low end.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's basically my thinking, is that I take a really thick instrument and I will balance it out with a pre that does the opposite of that.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, so that's basically why I landed on those things.
Yeah, and when we talk about like a pre adding low end versus not and whatever, these things are really subtle when it comes to preamps too. It's not like putting an EQ on a thing. It's a tonal shift. It's subtle. It is there.
I think most new ears won't be able to tell the difference between preamps.
No, not at all.
It took me many, many years to hear it.
Yeah, and years of using them, right? There is a tightness. So when we're talking about like these differences, just to further dive in, like a Neve has a thick bottom end as opposed to an API, which is much tighter and a bit more mid-forward. And these things are subtle, but it's about choosing those tones, right? Every little increment helps in that mix stage.
And it's also like, what are you trying to achieve in your mix, right? Like, do you want the drum kit to sit behind everything and just be a big, fat, thick thing in the background? If you do, then use all 1073s. You know, do you want it to be only just tight and clicky and like in your face? Well, then just use Cappy, or whatever API. Anyway, that's I thought it was interesting. I thought people might get some value from that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think we might do another one of these in a couple of weeks or months once I've had time to trial some new techniques. Yeah.
Sick.
Fuck yeah, dude.
Yeah, and if you have any questions, make sure you hit us up in the comment sections and stuff like that on this stuff. It's a lot to go over.
Yeah. Please add us both on like Instagram, things like that, because every week I put out a thing asking people for questions.
Yeah.
We're going to start doing question episodes, aren't we?
Yeah.
I think next week we might make it a questions episode.
That'd be so sick.
Yeah, so we're basically just going to spend the entire episode going through questions that people have either asked us on social media or personally or whatever.
Yep.
And just, basically just do a fun Q&A type thing.
Yeah, 100%. We've had a lot of good ones. So
it's been really good. Yeah, thanks for interacting with us, guys. It's fun.
Yeah, fun.
What else you got on that list? Where are we at?
For today?
Yeah. Is that the end of our...
That's it for today.
The end of our shoot?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So next week is questions episode. I have a bunch from last week. I'm going to put more up on my thing. And,
yep.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah. And then do we have anything else exciting coming up in future episodes you want to talk about yet?
I don't think there's anything. I want to do a distressor episode.
Yeah.
I want to do an episode that's purely based on it because you've just got a pair, and I'm excited for you. And they're still the only.
I'm also excited for me.
They're still the only compressor that they go on every mix, and it's. Yeah. I don't even think it's just like they're going to be on here at some point.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hell yeah.
That I also have a mic from Mic Parts that I'm keen to share.
Yes.
I'll be sending your way.
Can I borrow it?
Yeah, I'll give it to you. Yeah.
All right, cool. All right, sick.
It's the SDC KM84 style mic.
Yeah.
This one is purely for snare drum.
Yeah.
So this might find a place.
So they've voiced it for a snare drum?
They've voiced and dialed in the output,
and the SPL.
And the SPL and stuff. So it is designed to take those heavier hits from a snare drum. It's purely for snare. So you couldn't use it on acoustic guitar like you would a KM84 or anything. You would use it only on snare.
I'm pretty sure they put out a newsletter.
There's different versions of it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
There's different versions they've done.
Right.
This is the snare only one.
Right.
I'm very keen.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah, dude.
I'll have a session up for it after tomorrow.
Oh, yeah, cool. Good luck with it.
Yeah.
All right, dude. Thank you. You're a legend.
Catch you later.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
Hell yeah.